Summary of the Cellist of Sarajevo by Stephen Galloway. During the Bosnian War, a cellist in Sarajevo plays Albinoni's Adagio to keep himself upbeat while the city is under siege. While he is playing, a shell hits the bakery outside the cellist's apartment building, killing 22 people who were waiting in line to buy bread. At the same time, a sniper named Arrow is shooting at troops who are attacking Sarajevo. She never wanted to be a fighter and isn't used to killing, but she is very angry about what the men on the hill did to Sarajevo. During the war, she changes her name to Arrow to get far enough away from her old dislike of killing to make herself a weapon and protect her city. She shoots a soldier from the other side for no other reason than that he is a soldier. Kenan, a middle-aged father from Sarajevo, wakes up on the other side of town and gets ready for the dangerous trip to a brewery to get water for his family. He doesn't want to go out on the streets, but he knows he has to so that his family can stay alive. He also told his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rostovsky, that he would help her get through the war. As he goes to the bakery to buy bread, an older man named Dragan thinks about how peaceful and happy Sarajevo used to be. He wishes they could all go back to that time, but he thinks that Sarajevo was never as good as he remembers it. Raza, his wife, and Davor, his teenage son, ran away to Italy when the war broke out. Now, Dragan lives with his sister and keeps everyone from his old life away from him. Dragan stops at a crossroads and hides behind some boxcars while he waits for the right time to go out into the street, where snipers might shoot him. Kenan tries to act like he is walking to work like he used to in his old life. He says hello to his old friend Ismet, who has joined the Sarajevo army and is now a soldier. Kenan feels bad that he hasn't been drafted yet, but he really doesn't want anything to do with death and killing. Kenan then walks by the old music academy and the tram stop. As he does, he thinks about how the war has destroyed everything civilized. When he gets to the Miljacka River, which goes through Sarajevo, he decides to walk down to the Princip Bridge instead of trying to cross the Kumirija Bridge, which has been hit by multiple mortars and is now just a bunch of steel girders. But shooters are shooting at the Princip Bridge right now, so Kenan has to walk all the way to the Sihir Sahaja Bridge. Arrow goes to see her boss, Nermin Filipovic, to give him a report. When Arrow first became a shooter, Nermin told her she could choose her own targets. But now Nermin has a special job for Arrow. He has to protect a cellist who is going to play an adagio for 22 days to honor the people who died in a recent shelling attack. Dragan is still stuck at the crossing, where he saw someone shoot at a couple as they crossed. He runs into Amina, an old friend of his wife's. Dragan tries to keep his distance as Amina tries to talk to him. After talking for a while, they both wish that the world would pay attention to what is going on in Sarajevo and that people would be kind and caring again. Dragan decides to try to cross the street in the end, but before he gets halfway across, someone shoots at him. He runs back to where Amina is still waiting on the other side. Back with the cellist, Arrow sets out the spot in the street where the cellist plays. She thinks that the enemy sniper will probably hide in a building to the east, so she picks an empty flat to the southwest where she can shoot back if the sniper tries to shoot. She sets up a fake flat for the shooter to shoot at first so that he will tell her where he is before he shoots the cellist. The cellist comes out to play at 4 in the afternoon. Arrow thinks she sees the sniper in one of the apartments across the street, but the sniper never fires. Kenan sees the burned National Library on his way to the lower bridge. He feels sad about the loss of culture and society in the city. When he gets to the bridge, he runs across it in a strange way to throw off any possible snipers. Kenan drops Mrs. Rostovsky's bottles on the other side, which makes him think again about how much he hates having to help this woman who has always been mean to him and his family. Dragan and Amina keep talking and telling each other how scared they are of getting hurt or killed as they walk around their city. Amina tells Dragan about a cellist who plays in the streets to keep hope alive in Sarajevo, even though he can't do anything to end the war. Amina chooses to try to cross the street after seeing a dog do it without getting hurt. A man with a hat walks across from the other side as she does it. Amina gets shot in the arm by a shooter, but the man in the hat doesn't stop to help her. Dragan stays stuck on the side of the road while another young guy jumps into the line of fire to carry Amina to safety. Amina and the young man make it back to the boxcar, but the man in the hat gets shot in the stomach. The shooter then shoots the man with the hat in the head, sending the man's hat flying to Dragan's feet. The next morning, Arrow goes back to the Cellist Street. She sees flowers in the street that are a memorial to the people who died in the bakery attack and wonders when she stopped caring about the dead. Arrow looks up at her fake flat and the place where she is hidden, and then she realizes the sniper is watching her. She runs away quickly, hoping that the shooter hasn't caught on to her plan. By 4 o'clock, Arrow is again hiding in the flat, waiting for the shooter to shoot at the decoy so she can kill him. The cellist walks back out and starts playing again. Unfortunately, the sniper is hiding in the fake flat and shoots where Arrow is hidden before she can move. Arrow dodges the bullet and then waits for the second shot that will kill the guitarist. Still, the shooter doesn't kill the cellist. Arrow tells Nerman what happened, and Nerman tells her that the Sarajevo militia will soon try to take Arrow's skills and use them for their own ends. The next day, Arrow goes back to her hiding place and waits for the shooter to show himself again. He does so as soon as the cellist starts playing. Arrow is going to shoot him, but she stops when she sees that the shooter is really paying attention to the cellist. Arrow has trouble deciding if it's right to shoot this man, but just as the musician finishes, he puts a bullet in the sniper's head. Arrow wants the musician to thank her for what she just did for him, but she doesn't even look up at him as she goes inside. Keenan gets to the brewery and waits for his containers to be filled. As soon as he gets to the front of the queue, grenades start hitting the brewery. Keenan is so shocked by all the violence and pain around him that he can't even move to help the hurt. All he can do is finish filling his bottles and start the long trip home. Since the gunfire is hitting the lower bridges, Keenan has to go up to the dangerous Kumirija Bridge. Keenan can't cross the river with both his own bottles and Mrs. Rostovsky's, so he leaves Mrs. Rostovsky's bottles behind. People help Amina get into a car at Dragan's crossing so she can go to the hospital to get her arm fixed. Dragan can only hold Amina's blue coat and curse himself for not helping her get to safety. He also notices how the blue coat stands out against the gray city. As the car moves away, Dragan thinks about how in the hopelessness of war, he gave up on Sarajevo. Even though Dragan wants to be with his family in Italy, he decides to stay in Sarajevo and try to rebuild the home he used to have there. Arrow meets with Nerman again to tell him that she killed the shooter, even though the sniper never fired. Nerman tells Arrow to go away so that the Sarajevo group won't keep pressuring her to do things that are against her morals. Nerman is leaving the army because the people in charge are so focused on winning the war that they are destroying everything that Sarajevo used to stand for. As Arrow leaves his office, Nerman's office building bursts from the inside. That night, 3 soldiers show up in Arrow's own flat and tell her to report to Colonel Karaman. The colonel gives Arrow a new task in which she can't choose her own targets. Keenan makes it through the city and back to the market, where he sees Ismet again. Keenan sees a well-fed man with a Mercedes taking a shipment of water to sell on the black market as Ismet goes to trade for food. Keenan is so angry that people like this take advantage of the hungry and stuck Sarajevans that he goes to talk to this man. Then, the sound of a cellist playing in the street draws Keenan's attention away. Keenan can think of the old Sarajevo when he hears the music. He makes a promise to himself that the war won't make him angry so that he can help rebuild Sarajevo after it's over. Keenan chooses to go back and get Mrs. Rostovsky's water bottles. Arrow is brought to the bombed-out Parliament building, where a soldier named Hassan becomes her tracker. Hassan tells Arrow to shoot a civilian who is walking through Sarajevo territory that is held by the enemy. Arrow fights with her guilt, feeling angry at the enemy and sad about everything she has lost. But Arrow decides not to shoot the citizen and runs away from the Parliament building, even though she knows that this makes her a defector. At the same time, Dragan sees a journalist putting up a camera to take a picture of the dead man who was trying to cross. Dragan realizes all of a sudden that he doesn't want this picture of destruction to be what the rest of the world sees when they think of Sarajevo. Before the reporter is done, Dragan puts himself in danger by pulling the body out of the street. He finds the dead person behind the boxcars and gives the man's hat back to him. It's time to go to the brewery again, 4 days after Kenan got water. Kenan is much more hopeful now that he has heard the musician for 4 days. As a way to keep Sarajevo alive, he is more brave about the trip to get water. Dragan also decides to do everything he can to bring back the old spirit of Sarajevo. He walks quietly across the street to get to where the cellist is playing, and he decides to get to know the people around him by greeting them instead of hiding. That night, Arrow stays in her flat and waits for the forces to come to get her. She kept the cellist safe during the 22 days of his funeral. She now goes by her old name, Elisa, and is ready to die instead of killing out of hate.
About the author. Stephen Galloway was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, and grew up in Kamloops. At age 20, he realized that the books he loved to read were written by real people, so he chose to write books himself. After going to the University College of the Cariboo and the University of British Columbia, Galloway became a professor of creative writing at both the University of British Columbia and Simon Fraser University. Galloway's first book, Finney Walsh, was about 2 Canadian boys who become friends because they both love hockey. It was nominated for a Canadian First Novel Award. Galloway started doing study on the Bosnian War in 2002, which led to him writing The Cellist of Sarajevo. The Cellist of Sarajevo came out in 2008 and quickly became a bestseller around the world. Galloway kept writing and teaching. In 2014, he published The Confabulist, but in 2015, he was fired from the University of British Columbia because of sexual attack claims. He now lives with his wife and children in Westminster.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.